All right, so we ended up spending all day yesterday charging, trying to charge this battery back up with this 12 volt LifePo waterproof charger, but it only do like 300 and around 400 watts. So it was taking forever to charge this thing up. I mean, it was like, I think 30 amps it was charging around, but it was taking forever, and it was showing on my app for the battery, for the WattCycle battery, that it was going to take like 12 hours or something like that. So I dug out my old 14.6 volt, 68.5 amp lithium iron phosphate charger, and this charged this up from like 85% or 80% up to 100% in like an hour. So if you have one of these, you could probably get away with doing that. And I've got another one coming, and the second one, we'll have those in parallel, and we could easily run overnight with that. But the problem is charging this back up. When you're looking at charging, it's 280 amp hours. And if you're fully depleted, if you divide that by 68 amps charger, it would take 4.1 hours. If you take 280 amp hours divided by 60, it would take 4.6 hours. If you take 280 amp hours divided by 50, it would take 5.6 hours. If you take 280 amp hours divided by 40 amps charge, it would take 7 hours. And 280 amps divided by 30 amps would take 9 hours. Now, this can get up to 30 amps with 2 solar panels, but it was only for about 4 or 5 hours. But the problem is, once you start using that, and right now we have that mini split on the dry mode, and it's drawing 180 watts out of the battery. Well, it says it is, but it's bringing in 79, so it's actually a difference of 100. So it's 13.3 volts. It says it's 162 watts coming out. I think I said amps earlier. So this is running on 250, right around 240, 250 watts to run that mini split right now. And if you go over to the battery, we're at 98%. We are discharging at 58 watts, 4 amps. It shows our battery at 13.3, but it says if we were to continue doing that, it says we'd have 112 hours, 107 hours before we discharged our battery at that rate. So we're dropping down a little bit more. Now, as the sun comes up, it's around 7:15. The more that the sun comes up, it will start let's see, it's not gonna show us on that. But as the sun comes up, the watts on this are gonna drop, being drained out of the battery, and it'll start draining, or it'll start charging the battery again. Probably be a couple more minutes before that. But this was, I don't even know if you can get a hold of one of these now from Battery Evo. But they do have these, I believe the EG4s that'll charge higher than this. I'm not sure if it says on here. It's a 12 volt, and it was right around, I think I was getting right around 30 amps. The input voltage on this thing is 90 to 264. It's pretty wide range. Input current 16 amps. Not really saying what the rated output voltage 14.6, rated output current 15 amps. So this was giving out like 15 amps. I'm sorry, I think I said 30 earlier. So that was going to take forever to charge this thing up. And this will charge, I was getting around 400 watts out of the 580 watts. I have two 290 watt mono solar panels up there on the pergola, and it's at a pretty good angle. It's on the top of the pergola, and the sun's almost at a straight 90-degree angle in the sky when it's coming up. Right now it's not, but at noon, you know, from like, I'd say from like 9 a.m. to like 3 p.m. we'd be getting close to the 400 watts. But at 400 watts, let's see, at 400 watts divided by 13.2 volts, it give me around 30 amps. This is a 40 amp charger. So I mean, this is on 12 volts, but on 24 volts, you can use 1200 watts of solar. On 36, you can use 1800 watts of solar input. And on 48 volt, you can use 2400 watts of solar. But the max you're going to get out of it is 40 amps. So 40 amps, oops, when we looked at it earlier, 280 amp hours divided by 40 amps would take you 7 hours if you could run at 40 amps. So you could use this, but then you're going full throttle on this thing. And it's going to wear it out much quicker when you're running at 40 amps versus running it at like 30 amps. It's not running as hard because these things don't have fans on to cool them down or anything. And right now, it's 100 degrees. It's saying this is 100 degrees. It tells me the temperature of this charge controller. So we're 13.3. We're only using 119 watts. So if we go back to our WattCycle battery, with what we're bringing in off the solar, now we're down to 0. Now we're not using any more. It's on standby. We're actually bringing in enough solar off that solar charge controller at 7:20 in the morning to run this mini split on dry mode. And that's actually saying it's using 180 and 79. Oh, now it's 140 and 119. So it's actually like 260 watts. Oops, 260 watts. So still on standby. So that's not bad. We can get this thing. We started running it because we didn't run it last night because it took us all day yesterday and this morning to charge up that battery. But don't know if you can see on there, but it's actually showing 65-degree air coming out of this, and we're able to run that off those solar panels right now. Now, I did make some mistakes when I tried to run it when I ran it the night before. The biggest mistake I made was looking at this. When I went online and looked at all the information I could about this, there's no way to set the amp hours on that. That is set up so that it's designed for like a AGM, lead acid, gel battery, flooded 12 volt or a lithium 12 volt. Now this is a 12 volt, 12.8 volt lithium iron phosphate, and it's designed for this with like 1280 watt hours. So it's got 100 amp hours on it. So that's what that thing is designed for, to charge one 12 volt battery like this. But when you have a bigger battery like this, you cannot rely on the percent state of charge at all. It's not going to give you the correct amount because that's like 3 batteries. So that's never going to give you that. You're going to have to rely on the app here for the battery. Usually these newer batteries will have the app. So right now we're at 100% state of charge, and we're on standby. So the battery is completely charged at 7:25 in the morning, and we're running off of the solar. Well, there's 2 things that we're running off of. We're running off of 12 100 watt solar panels directly connected to that mini split on the outside, and the outside unit's right behind the wall, behind this toolbox. So, and that 1200 watts of solar is connected directly into that outside condenser unit. And then we have the 290 watt mono panels connected to this. And this is bringing in enough between that. Well, that's actually saying we're on standby. Let's see if we go back to this app. Let's see. Yeah, so it says the voltage is at 13.3 volts, 9.25 amps, 123 watts is what's coming into the battery right now. We're at 60.8 volts DC. So it's bringing in this, and it says it's charging this, but the BMS on this is not allowing it to do anything because the battery's 100% charged. So that's just basically running that over there. So it is on the, there we go. Now it says it's on standby, but it's actually charging now. It's charging 1.7 amps, 22.6 watts. So there must be a little bit of room left to charge that up to be able to get that. It says it's on standby, but it's charging. So now it's at 2 amps. So there must be a little bit to top off on that. But anyways, the one thing that I realized is this setup's not really going to work for me, because if I drain this battery overnight, like I did, but the problem, I didn't really drain the battery. I was looking at that percentage of saying the battery was 100% full. And when I actually looked at it, when I came out in the morning, it said it was 4%. And then after starting to charge it for a couple hours, I was only at 20%. So that said that was full because it was still over 100 amp hours left in the battery, but I don't even know if there was that. So if you're going to use something that's over 100 amp hours, this is not going to be able to tell you the state of charge on it. You're going to have to use your app on this. Now we're up to 3.1 amps charging on this. So it's a standby, but that can turn the charging off if you want, and then you can also turn the charging back on. And discharging, you can turn the discharging off. If you press this, it says setting successful. And then to turn the discharging back on, you can do that. So you can use this app to do things. But I'm being like 50 feet away upstairs through the ceiling, and I'm being able to control this app and get the readings on this app. So now we're at 3.8, where it says it's charging. So, and this is the battery here. So it says that it's able to charge. When we first started running it, we were discharging it, so there was a little bit. But in a little bit, it should top back off, and this should go down to zeros down here. It should be, it actually went up to 14.4 volts on here, and it was 0 coming in. So I could use that, and that would keep up with it, but neither of these two would be able to keep up with it, especially if I drain that battery. Neither one of these are going to be able to have enough amps charging. This will charge up to 100 amps. That'll be the output charging on that. That's a charge controller there. So I could use this. I could use one of these. This is an all-in-one inverter. But I would have to run an outlet like here out of this, and then be able to actually wouldn't really, I could do it, but I would have to plug this instead of into this inverter. Instead of using this inverter, I'd be using this into an outlet like this. So this will charge at 80, and 80 times 3 is 240 amps. So that'd be 3 hours, 240 amps. Yeah, it'd take 3.5 hours to charge that battery up using one of these. So that's a possibility that I could, and I do have 2 spares down there that I was going to do a project with. So I could try doing that if I wanted to. So either this EG4 charge controller or this EG4 off-grid pure sine wave inverter that has 3,000 watt output, 80 amps output, and 5,200 watt input. But you got to keep your amp input coming off your solar panel below like 20 amps on this. So, and that's what these breakers are, is 20 amp breakers, DC breakers for the solar coming in. So we learned that this is good, but it's only going to give me, at 600 watts of solar, it's only giving me 400 watts out of the 580. See, we're actually discharged a little bit, so it's still charging, but it says charging time to full charging 0.7 hours. So it's now dropped from 100 down to 99%. So it's going to be able to keep charging this up, it looks like. So it says it'll 0.6 hours, so it's going down a little bit. So it'll be charged back up pretty soon here, because we will, on our mini split, we're bringing in 199 watts on the solar, and we're using 60 right here from this cord going to that. So we'll be running that mini split completely off of the solar, the 1,200 watt solar panels, within about 10-15 minutes. So it'd be like 7:45, and then we'll be able to keep this topped off all day long. We just need to make sure, the only way you can use that is to be able to use that overnight is on dry mode. And like I said, this thing is really kicking out cold air, and it feels like it's a medium or a high. It's showing 60 3-degree air coming out of this thing. So the longer it runs, the cooler the air is. It'll eventually get down to around 52, 54 degrees coming out of that. And if you have some fans that can move the air around, it would do a lot better. I was going to look at, so it's showing a temperature of 86. It says it's 87. I have it set at 87, but it's showing a temperature of 86 degrees, but that's way over here. And like I said, I did not run this overnight. So that's the thermostat on this. This is the remote for it. And it's actually saying it's like 86 degrees right on here. So that's pretty accurate. So now we know that this will work to keep it topped off during the day as long as we stay full. But the problem is, once we drain this battery overnight, this BOugeRV charge controller, even at 40 amps charging, is not going to be able to recharge that battery if we drain it. Because it's only going to give me like 25, 30 amps on those solar panels. And say at 30 amps for 6 hours, that's 180 amp hours. Now, if we still have 100 amp hours in it, and we can run our solar 100% off those solar panels, it might do okay. But I have a feeling that it's going to keep dropping down a little bit more and more and more each day. If we try to use this, it just doesn't have enough. Like, if this was one of these 100 watt EG4 battery, 12 volt, 100 amp hours, charging it at 30 amps, we would be able to charge that battery back up in 3.25 hours. If it was down to 0, we could charge that thing back up, and if we have no load on it. So if we had a load on it, then it would probably take 5 or 6 hours, but we would be able to get probably 25, 30 amps for 5 to 6 hours. So if you're using 100 amp hour 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery, you could probably use that for that, whatever you're using it for, but it's not going to do the job for this 280 amp hour battery that I'm using. I'm just using too much. Now, I'll say this though, when I came out the other day, when I ran it overnight on the dry mode, it was at 12.6. So, but I'd have to see, that's deceiving in that, because on this, that's saying it's 0.4 hours. It was 0.7, so it's almost charged back up again. It was saying it was like 12.6 over here. So 12.6, when it was 13.2, it was still showing like 30%. So that's, you really can't go by the, like you could with a lead acid or AGM, the amount of amp hours you have left at that is, it's not the same. So you get much more battery storage and power output out of one of these batteries, because you can only go down to 12 volts. You can charge it up to like 13.2 on the AGMs is what I would do. They'd hold at 13.2, but you only drop them down to 12 volts. Otherwise, you start ruining the battery. And there's a big difference between going down to 12 and going down to 10.5 with these batteries. So, like I said, this is like 3 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate batteries in that one case. So it's like having 3 of those that you can go down to 10.5 volts on those. So that's a huge difference. As where if you had 3 AGMs going down to 12 volts, you can't run anything overnight on an AGM. or a lead acid battery. It just does not. And if you go below that 12 volts, you're just going to really degrade that battery a lot. So, you know, like I said, I could use it in my garage, but I would have to top it off with one of these at the end of the day. I could, while I'm running it, I'll get full output out of that till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon before the sun is at the angle where I'm not being able to produce 100% of its solar input that it needs. So I would have to have that battery fully charged at 4 o'clock, but then I'm going to be using that up. So if I want to go from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., that's actually going to be, it's going to start using that battery at 4 p.m. But if I'm on dry mode and the garage is already cooled down, but here's my other problem I have is at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the wife pulls in with a hot car into the garage. You got to add that into the mix because now you're taking and bringing in all that heat. And usually I would have this one running and that one running at full tilt to get the garage down to like 68 degrees by 3:30, 4 o'clock, and then she pulls in, and then by 6 o'clock I would turn these off, and it would be like 72, 76 degrees, somewhere in that range. And then the car's still, the engine's a little bit hot, so it'd probably raise it up to like 80 degrees. And then overnight, if I'm not running it, it'd go up to 90, 95 degrees in this garage because this one and this one is putting out heat overnight. So it's one of the reasons why I was trying to see if I could use this to run that mini split. And it did. When I ran it overnight and I drained it down to 12.6 the first night, it kept the garage at 78 degrees from the time I went to bed to the time I got up. It was like 12 hours. So you could do it, but you got to be able to recharge that battery by at least 4 p.m. when it starts using that battery again. So right now it says we're only using 50 watts on this. So that means we're supplying down to 0.3 hours of charging. We're bringing in 108 watts, 8.8 amps. We're at 13.4 on our battery. So this is 13.5. Now we're down to 36 watts. And 49. So yeah, it's saying it's like 20 watts. We're up to 240 watts, 239 on our input, and only 20 watts over here. 37. So 20 watts again. So right now, this 35 watts. So that's saying it's 35 watts coming out of there, but we have more coming in there. We got the 35 watts plus we're bringing in more watts because we're charging the battery. So that's about 80 watts that we're bringing in to charge in the battery. So it's saying 0.2 hours. So it's gone from 0.7 down to 0.2 since we plugged that in and started that up. So it's going to be like 7:45 and that battery is going to be fully topped off till about 4 o'clock, unless we get some clouds. And then it'll start chewing up this battery. But as long as we keep that on, keep that on that solar to keep that battery topped off, we're fine. Now the other thing for me, since I have it, I'll have this air conditioner that I usually run during the day around 10 o'clock. I'll start it because I can run that completely off of solar on that off-grid solar system over there. So that will get the garage cooled down a lot before the wife gets home. Then it runs for about 2 hours. It runs for about 2 hours after she pulls in the garage and it's blowing out like 34-degree air. I mean, it's on turbo, it's on high. It's using 26 to 3,000 watts on that thing. I mean, it really cools down the garage quick in here. When it's 110 degrees out and I have no car in the garage and I haven't opened the garage or anything from the morning, it'll be like 64 degrees in this garage when I'm running both those mini splits. It's insane. So, anyways, if you're thinking about using this type of a setup, in order to make sure you're going to get through the night every night and have your battery topped off, you're going to need something bigger than that. And I think when I looked, I think these are $68 right now. I have the link in the description from the last video I did. And those were like 109. I think they were like 109. Maybe I got it for like 89 at the time. It was on sale. But I mean, it's a pretty good little solid charge controller. If you're only using one 12 volt 100 amp hour, it's going to do the trick for you. But you know, if you're going to use that overnight and drain it down to zero, then that will be able to charge it back up in about 3.25 hours to full battery again. If you're running it with a load, it might take 6 hours to charge that back up with a full load. Just depends on the load you're running. That's going to charge at max 30 amps, 25 to 30 amps, somewhere in that range. And if you're running a load of 5 amps, that still gives you 20 amps to charge up that battery. With the difference, it would take you 5 hours at 20 amps to charge up a fully depleted 12 volt 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. So, and that's running a load of 5 amps. So, you know, I would look at EG4 or EG4 to do what I'm doing over here. So, and we'll do that pretty soon. We'll end up taking one of these batteries here, the EG4 100 amp hour 5120 volt, and we will connect that to maybe one of those, or we'll connect it to just the charge controller over there. But if we do it to the charge controller, then we can't use this inverter with that charge controller. We would have to use because that's only a 48 volt charge controller. So we do have a 48 volt inverter right here. This is 48 volt input DC to 120 volt output, and that's 1200 watt. So we could use that with that charge controller and this battery right here. So, but with that, that's got a pure sine wave inverter, so we can just run the output into one of these plugs, and then we can just plug the mini split plug right into that output, because that's pure sine wave coming out of there. So that's it. I'll leave links in the description. If you have any questions or comments, or trying to set this up and want to know what I did, please don't hesitate to ask. Please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and there'll be links in the coupon codes where I have a coupon $50 off of 500 for any products at Signature Solar, and also a 6% off coupon if you buy a WattCycle battery and put in DIY Solar Guy, and you can get 6% off of that. Right now they have, those batteries are $549. They're down to $399 still today, July 15th, I think it is. And they're supposed to go back up again. And $399 takes 6% off of that. So that's $24 off of that. That drops that down into $370 some range. 376, I think it is. And then you add the tax, and it's free shipping. So the pretty good battery. I really like it. I highly recommend that battery. You Yeah, it's a good inverter. It hasn't shut down on me, except for when the battery went out, it automatically shut down because the BMS shut off on the battery the other night when I was draining it too fast. And I thought it was 100% charged when it was nowhere near 100%. Probably hit like 30%. So it wasn't the inverter's fault. So still on the fence with this BOugeRV charge controller. I'll let you know. Have a blessed day. See you in the next video.